So, Mayor Nichols, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about, what's been going on in Yuma. Let's just get right into it. I know you don't have that much time. So, last week, 6,000 migrants entered the U.S. via Yuma over a 5-day span. This prompted you on last Thursday to declare a state of emergency. I understand the situation is a little more under control now, but could you just walk us through briefly, what happened in Yuma last week?
Sure. So in those 5 days, the 6,000 people coming through was just more than what the DHS system could handle. So typically what happens when a group comes across, they're looking for Border Patrol. They want to be brought into custody and get the papers that allow them to stay in country until their court date. That's their mission. And so they come across the border and they wait, and Border Patrol comes and picks them up. Well, when the system was overloaded, Border Patrol didn't have the capacity to come and do the pickups or even process fast. So people started hanging out at the border, waiting for that buses that just took hours to come if they came at all. So then they started walking. The permission was to walk to the Border Patrol station, which is within the city of Yuma. And so they're walking through the agricultural part of our community and then into the primary community we have. And the second day of increasing numbers of people doing that in the community, I just thought that this is too much. We need to have our local declaration of emergency in place. The governor had declared an emergency months ago, so it follows that emergency and takes its authorities through that system.
Yeah, and you talked about kind of the agriculture and people were looking for resources. Can you go into a little more about that? How did this affect local humans, the agriculture industry there, local businesses, the hospital?
Well, so, as far as our agricultural industry, we're leaders on food safety and producing food you can rely upon. So there was a lot of additional effort by our agricultural industry to keep those high quality and safe measures in place. So there was extra cost, extra effort for them to get that done. And with no end in, potentially early on, it didn't seem like there was going to be an end in sight. That anxiety rose. You talk about the hospital. If you look at some of these videos, you see a lot of women are coming across pregnant, and some of them at 9 months. And it was already kind of busy already with the Yuma residents, and with COVID on top of that, all the other departments, were busy. So adding this extra layer of people that were coming through the community with various issues, people are people, and humanitarian issues follow people wherever they go. And so that was just an additional layer that has taken up some of the capacity within our hospital system.
And, the situation's a little more under control now. How did that come about? How have you been working with Homeland to kind of fix this crisis?
Well, they did surge more agents to the border. We have 110 agents show up this week. That helps keep things moving along, actually even faster than they were prior. But Border Patrol was able to work through a lot of systems internally to move people out, and we had reduced numbers those days following that initial weekend that let them catch back up. But I've reached out and I've had a lot of discussions with the Secretary of Homeland Security office, and have had a visit just this week from their health department section in DHS. And we're talking at that level on what the needs are and how we can best secure the activities that are happening along the border to the protection of our community and our industry.
What were some of those solutions you talked about? Because it seems, just sending 100 officers, just for a limited amount of time, that doesn't seem like a sustainable solution. What kind of sustainable long-term solutions are you guys talking about?
Well, we're always talking about more permanent agents at the border. We're talking about ways to secure off the border, keep people as they cross in certain areas to avoid maybe more of the sensitive areas of the community, maybe closing off some of the gaps in the wall. Temporary or permanent, that is yet to remain to be seen, but in order to keep people from entering in those locations. And then the county was able to put out some more porta potties, basic human necessities, some water, some little bit of food, so that people can get those necessary comforts, and we avoid them with other humanitarian issues, as well as just blankets. You're in the desert at night, things get really, really cold, and we need to make sure that we're not ending up with huge other issues besides just talking about immigration.
There's a lot of conceptions out there that actually the border wall doesn't do much to prevent immigrants from coming over or to secure the border. In your experience with the conversations you've had with Border Patrol and such, do you believe the border wall is an effective way of kind of securing the border?
It is definitely effective. So we have a river that is the actual border between us and the state of Baja California. And so our wall is offset from the actual river in a lot of locations. But the activity is happening specifically in the 7 miles of wall that didn't get finished and the 52 gates that didn't get finished. A lot of the migrants actually fly to Mexicali from wherever their country is or from within Mexico, and then traverse to Yuma. So there's a lot of evidence that, yeah, when you have a physical barrier, it at least deters and helps you be more resourceful on where your weaknesses are in your defense system.
We talked to Yuma County Sheriff Wilmot this week, and he and others seem to be under the impression that it is many of the policies and the policy proposals pushed by the Biden administration that is actually leading to this crisis, that's incentivizing migrants coming over. The new guidance given to them by this administration is to, not enforce the rule of law quite as strictly. And in addition to that, when migrants come over and they're asked, hey, why are you guys coming over in such large numbers? Why did you specifically choose now to come over? They say they know there's less border security, there's less a chance of them getting caught, and they know they have a better chance at amnesty. Do you think the Biden administration's policies has helped lead to this surge we've seen in the last year?
When he lifted a lot of the immigration executive orders, which didn't have any sort of backup plan. There was no, okay, we're going to do this, and then this is how we're going to message that it's still illegal to come into this country, not through the immigration process. That messaging was void. And so there was no real plan on how to implement this. You can't just change something and expect things not to get crazy. So I have a friend that is he's a law enforcement official in California, and he's encountered a few of the people that have come through, and they typically show up and say that they were being invited by the president and they're here to get their check. Now that's just one officer's experience, but it's been a multiple experience for him. And that's all messaging. That has nothing to do with the actual law. That's out and getting, just reinforcing adamantly that this is not how you immigrate to the United States. They're being extorted and abused. You see it and you hear the stories. And that's not, I don't know a single American who thinks those are the policies we should be helping support. The policies we should be helping support, whether it's our country or any other country, is protecting human rights, making sure that people aren't exploited and turned into a commodity. Those are the things that are more near and dear to every American I know, regardless of party. And so I think the messaging is where it all begins. We need to have stronger messaging on immigration.
Yeah, and the White House, they have put out some messages telling migrants, hey, do not come here illegally. But at the same time, right now, with the Build Back Better bill in Congress, they are working on what Jason Riley of the Wall Street Journal describes as the largest amnesty in the nation's history. Do you think messaging-wise, this is a good time to bring in the largest amnesty in the nation's history when the bill actually isn't pushing much to actually enforce border security at a greater level?
Yeah, I think if we're going to talk about immigration as a country, we need to start off with border security, because none of that matters until you have secured how people are coming across. And once you've disrupted that, then you can have effective discussions on immigration. It's one of those things that even in the policy for the Remain in Mexico, or the MPP, is being forced to be put back in place by the courts, which is great, except it's not being put back in the same condition that it was removed back in January. It's currently has dramatically reduced numbers. So it's always had limited number of people could be in the program, but it's about a fourth to a fifth of the numbers that were happening back just a year ago. Well, that means Yuma gets 10 slots. So we have 1,000 people a day roughly coming across, and only 10 people are eligible to be in that program. That's not going to change anything. At some level, we need to get back to policies that really make sense and not just giving lip service to the courts or to the people of the country.
And just wrapping up here, is there any message you'd want, the general American public to know about what's happening in Yuma right now?
One is the border is unsecure. The border is a condition we as a country need to stand up and secure. But conversely to that, our community is still very safe. I've looked at the stats, even just last night, our crime stats are not through the roof. I know other communities are having those issues. We're not. And I give a lot of credit to that to our Border Patrol agents. They do an amazing job with the limited resources they have. Our law enforcement works closely with them if there are any issues that arise. So that kind of relationship is great, but it doesn't tell the whole story on where really the struggles are with the law and a community that's still thriving despite of all those challenges.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today at the Western Journal.